Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a brand new episode of Faffing with Friends. This week we're joined by the expert of anime waifus and kaijus, James the Lad. James, say hello to our wonderful audience of whoever still listens at this point, I guess.
Lawrence, I'm a bit confused as to why you said the same thing twice there. Kaijus and anime waifus are, equated in my mind.
Yes. James has a Godzilla body pillow, for anyone wondering. You can get yours at the Faffing with Friends merch shop that doesn't exist.
One day.
One day.
Lawrence, I told you not to tell anyone that.
Today's episode is on kaijus. We're all fans of kaijus here, but the biggest fan that we know is Mr. James himself, so we just had to have him on,
Team
man.
Kaiju! Let's go.
We just had
Big
to have
boys.
him on, man. You know, the recent Godzilla vs. Kong film came out, and James was there at midnight, just waiting for the screening, the biggest...
I wasn't there at midnight, but I was there waiting to torrent it immediately.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So the reason why we have James here is because, we wanted to do an episode on kaijus for the longest of time, and who better than James to walk us through it. And with that being said, I just want to start off by saying, tell us where it all started, James. How did one little English boy end up having a Godzilla fetish?
Okay, this is kind of a weird question. Well, no, it's not a weird question, but it is kind of a weird answer. So when I was a kid, I had, kids are like, they often hyperfixate on certain things. Some kids are like really into cars. Some kids are really into like, I don't know, Action Man or some stuff like that. I was like obsessed with dinosaurs as a kid. That was like my big thing. I had like Walking with Dinosaurs, the BBC documentary. Like I had that stuff on repeat. My parents and grandparents always bought me like books and toys about dinosaurs. My knowledge as like a 7-year-old of dinosaurs was like encyclopedic. It was ridiculous.
Mad.
Wow.
And eventually I was introduced to the 1998 Roland Emmerich Godzilla film, which now as an adult I have mixed feelings about, but as a child I was like, that bit in Thor Ragnarok where Hulk is like, big monster. That was kind of me. I was like very excited. So I watched it. Matthew Broderick said that's a lot of fish, and it was. And I became kind of obsessed with that film for a time as well. And eventually my mum bought me, I think like as just a gift out of nowhere, she got me 2 of the old original Japanese Godzilla films, 2 of the ones from the 90s. I believe it was
fancy.
Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, Godzilla versus Mothra, which were like 1992 and 1993. And she probably thought, these are like 2 very kind of novel films. They're Japanese and they're really badly dubbed into English. The plot doesn't make any sense in either of them. I'll probably watch these and be like, whatever. She could not have been more wrong. I spiraled out of control after watching those 2 films. I needed every single one of these. I needed my parents to hunt these suckers down on eBay, get them wherever they could. I still have like a massive VHS, not DVD, VHS collection of these movies.
That's amazing.
I got them all so long ago.
For anyone who doesn't know, James created a spreadsheet of Godzilla films where he's like, watch these ones, don't watch these ones. These ones you can watch if you're really into it. And he just like tiered them all everyone he knows
that's so wholesome,
has
to be
the
honest.
guidance to watch Godzilla.
That's a very funny story because it literally happened like over lockdown. I was just like bored out of my mind, and I was like, you know what? Godzilla vs. Kong is coming out. Let me explore the history behind all this. So I obviously go ask James. I'm literally, let's send him like one simple message. I'm like, yo, James, what's a good Godzilla film? And she's like, well, let me tell you a story.
And then I didn't respond to Ivaylo for 40 minutes because I was sat there in Google Sheets like, okay, I need to like do a brief 2-sentence review of every single one of these films, create a color-coded tier system, and then I need to give like the fucking Rotten Tomatoes % score next to all of them. And I was like creating this document, which I then sent to Ivaylo. And I guess you can put that document, in the description of this video.
You know what?
Like
We
it.
might
absolutely.
We'll share the ultimate Godzilla guide with our audience.
It's truly a passion project unlike anything I've seen. It's truly, I can see the man's blood, sweat, and tears on that.
Yeah, it might be the most work I've ever seen James put into a spreadsheet.
Oh my god.
Put into anything, that was harder than my dissertation.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone knows about Godzilla. It's a pop culture symbol, not just in Japan, but like all over the world. But, a lot of people, obviously, you guys mentioned like the Power Rangers stuff of like, oh, it's just silly guys in costumes wreaking havoc and like destroying toy cities. But I think there's a lot of, important messages behind all the kaiju stuff. Again, in some films more apparent than in others. A personal favorite of mine is Anno's Shin Godzilla, for anyone who is massively into anime. He's also behind Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is another absolutely harrowing classic of Japanese culture. But yeah, James, like what's like your favorite kaiju message, if I can ask you that question, like
kaiju message.
Yeah,
that is quite interesting. I don't think I've ever heard. I know what you're getting at, but I've never heard the question posed quite like that.
Nuke's bad.
Yeah, effectively. Well, the obvious message of like the original film was it basically like nuke bad, because that was 1954. That came. It's quite incredible that film came just 20 years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the Japanese were already like putting their kind of collective trauma to film. It is quite impressive. I haven't watched the original for quite a long time, but it's being the first one. It is probably one of the most serious ones in terms of its message, because it's about weaponry more so than anything, and I'm completely losing my train of thought here. It's about like, oh, you just have to bloody watch it yourself. But it's kind of a big deal when you think about like the nukes and just the war and the substantial like loss of life that happened.
Yeah. Do you think that Godzilla is like serves as a metaphor for the nuclear bomb itself, or more as like the consequences of the nuclear bomb?
Kind of a bit of both.
Yeah.
Because kaiju, the DNA of the kaiju genre is to do with destruction, and like destruction of a mass scale of people and places, and also culture.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's literally got an atomic fucking breath.
Yeah, he is because he leaves nuclear fallout. That's another big part. It's not just immediate destruction; it's lasting destruction.
Yeah.
And that is he is in effect the bomb, but he is also the progenitor of the destruction as well. He's not just the symptom. He is a thing making an active choice to destroy.
Yeah.
And that is also, I believe, kind of almost the Japanese view of like the Americans, or like the opposing side of the war as well, in opting to cause destruction on such a mass scale.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's been lost over time with especially Godzilla and the kaiju films, because I feel like obviously with the new films that we have, it's all about, oh, Godzilla's been here for like a millennium living in the Hollow Earth, and now, again, because of obviously humans, he's been awakened. But I kind of prefer the
American
old
ones never had that message.
Yeah, no, they never do.
Why would they care? Yeah. They didn't get nuked.
Yeah,
precisely.
Like when you're making a Western adaptation, you don't go like, oh yeah, let's do this thing that only people from somewhere else understand. You go like, what does our market care about? Oh, stupid conspiracy theories about the Hollow Earth. Perfect.
It is kind of interesting that in the modern reimaginings, Godzilla is this thing that has been dormant for like millennia and is just kind of re-emerging, and it shows that the West kind of sees that kind of destruction as like a very distant memory. It's something that happened so long ago and still has consequences, whereas in a lot of the older movies, that destruction is very, very recent, and that kind of continues throughout like the first couple of films in the series. One of which is actually, I believe it's like the third or fourth film to come out, is the original Godzilla vs. Kong, which is a very interesting film for several reasons. It's probably one of the first ones that is a bit ridiculous in a way. They kind of lose their serious tone after they get a guy to dress up as a gorilla and another guy to dress up as a lizard and start just going to absolute town on each other, like shoving trees down each other's throats. They lose a little bit of the veneer.
Yeah, I've seen that one, and it's the fight scenes are hilarious. Like, yeah. The part especially where they're like hitting each other with prop trees. It's just for fuck's sake.
Unfortunately, my only experience, well, actually two of my experiences of Godzilla have been, number one, the Roland Emmerich movie that you mentioned.
Fantastic film.
Fantastic film. Incidentally written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio of Pirates of the Caribbean fame, so not surprises there. What? So I have a very naive and Western understanding of Godzilla.
I didn't even know that, jeez.
My other experience has been Masioka in Austin Powers and Goldmember, right? Where Ron Random Dude says, "Ron, it's Godzilla," when Austin Powers drives into a Godzilla figurine and starts driving it. And then Masioka says, "It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not." So that's my only two experiences with kaijus or Godzilla. I haven't even seen King Kong versus Chunky and Monkey. I've not seen that, unfortunately.
Chunky versus Monkey. You love to hear it.
As we know on the podcast, Joe's like the least cultured man on earth.
Yep.
He's still reading manuscripts from like the 19th century. He hasn't gotten to films just yet.
Ivaylo's running theory is that this whole podcast was made so I could catch up with all the culture that I've missed out.
Yeah, he's pulling a Captain America. He's got his little list, and like slowly but surely he'll one day see things.
Yeah. Oh man.
I think my favorite thing about the Roland Emmerich shit show is just the really hilarious fucking Diddy song that came with it. It's like,
oh god.
Anyone who knows the Diddy song, like, bruh, that was such a weird collab. I never expected Diddy and Godzilla just going in there in the fucking music video.
It's almost up there with Venom and Eminem, isn't it?
Oh
it's
yes,
pretty much up
that is
there.
Literally the
It's
modern
very
day
similar, isn't it?
evolution.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the spiritual successor. It's why I love Venom so much, and why Lawrence also shares my love of Venom.
A masterpiece.
One of the greatest superhero films in recent years.
The other thing I actually really love about the Roland Emmerich film is just Jean Reno's in it for no reason.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it's like his English got worse in this one movie. And he's the most French he's ever been in a Western film that he did.
I think they told him to be more French. I think that's literally the direction they gave him.
There's a lot of people like, I can't even fucking understand what he's saying. What is going on in this film? It's like,
well, he spends the whole film with like sunglasses on and a cigarette in his mouth. So I think it adds to the effect that you can't understand anything he's saying because he's meant to be very, very cryptic.
Yeah.
So obviously the appeal of these films over the years is like you don't sit down to watch these films if you like if you're gonna have like a serious conversation about the impacts of nuclear warfare. You do with some of them, but like the majority is
yeah, some of them absolutely.
Yeah, with the majority we're here to see giant men in like costumes fighting, right? That's what we're here for at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And now in modern day it's CG. So James, can you obviously I'm putting you on the spot here, but can you pinpoint exactly where Godzilla kind of stopped being this nuclear threat to Tokyo and kind of became like a friendly defenderish of humanity?
I think I kind of can, and I think it sort of starts with King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to take a guess. Is it not just the moment other kaijus appear that he has to fight? That's pretty much it.
In effect, after that point, it definitely becomes a lot more about the spectacle, because the original Godzilla...
it's like Godzilla fighting kaijus, you have to make the other kaiju the villain in most cases, right? Because otherwise, you don't really have any reason to root for one or the other. So the moment you get shit like Ghidorah and the other bad kaijus in there, it's like, suddenly it's like good kaiju saving the day. You know, omnipotent, like godlike protector of the earth fighting off three-headed bad dragon.
Yeah, from the 60s onwards, like the color films, they're all quite ridiculous. Like they are very much we got a dude in a suit, we've built a small part of Tokyo, we're going to watch these dudes go to town. Oh look, we made an animatronic Mothra that we're going to basically throw at him. We're not, we have like 6 strings attached to this thing. It's not very lifelike. There's bits falling off of it. Occasionally the film, they will, they'll get someone to actually write like a half decent narrative, which is kind of, you mentioned earlier Shin Godzilla. I feel like Shin Godzilla is very much again trying to hit at that original kind of DNA of like a disaster film,
100%.
More so than a kaiju film. And that's sort of what Shin Godzilla is, in the same way that the original was based on the Hiroshima and Nagasaki incidents.
Absolutely. 100%.
Shin Godzilla is the I believe it's the Fukushima disaster.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like all the radioactive fallout and the flooding of Japan especially. There's a lot of scenes where, in particular, one of the opening scenes of Shin Godzilla where you first see the monster it's kind of like this weird, gross tadpole thing.
Yeah.
And it's like waddling its way down the street and it's like pushing cars and boats very much the same way that the flooding like pushed lots of people's cars and lots of people's boats like through the canals of like the city.
Yeah. So we have, from what I'm understanding, we have a nuclear monster Godzilla. We have superhero good guy Godzilla, and then we have environmental disaster Godzilla.
Environmental disaster Godzilla is definitely the best.
That's kind of.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. That one's my favorite.
Yeah.
Like every representation where he's just like a force of nature that could not give less of a shit about any like humans and just walks by and destroys a city just because it's like it's in my path. I have to go this way. That's like my favorite Godzilla. I was gonna ask. I want to hear what your favorite Western film is and what your favorite Japanese one is.
I assume you mean out of the Godzilla films, not just
obviously.
my favorite Western film.
Yes, James.
Good Will Hunting, anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a classic monster film.
When Robin Williams sat Godzilla down.
Yeah, classic.
It's not your fault, Godzilla. It's not your fault. They made you do it. My favorite Western one. Okay, but it's definitely not Roland Emmerich. I'm sorry, Roland Emmerich. I'm sorry, Matthew Broderick. That's a lot of fish. Sorry, Jean Reno. Probably, I think of the recent Legendary Pictures kind of saga of films. I think the best one is actually the first one.
100%. I agree. I love that film.
The 2014 one with Bryan Cranston. I think that's actually a very, very good film, and I think
the one where they bait and switch Bryan Cranston
that was
being
so
in the
lame.
film.
Yeah, they were like, Bryan Cranston is the film stars Bryan Cranston and Godzilla. That's how they build it. And then, spoiler alert, Bryan Cranston does not last very long in that movie.
No.
And it ends up down to Aaron Taylor-Johnson to
the
fix
thing
everything.
is, a lot of people complain about that film having no Godzilla at all, but in my personal opinion, I prefer Godzilla in a smaller amount, because every time he does show up, the impact is much more grateful, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that is either... Okay, I think that one to me is my second favorite Western one. I love Godzilla being... The way they did it in that film, he feels larger than he's ever felt in like one of the Western ones. And he feels like ominous almost. Like those entire scenes that are just build up with the flares and like the city completely destroyed and he's like off in the distance through the smoke. Shit like that's great. I love that like representation. For me, my favorite though has to be... the second one that came out after that, just because the way it looks is like eye candy.
Yeah. King of the Monsters, you mean?
Yeah, and it made Ghidorah the scariest Ghidorah has ever been.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe Michael Dougherty's Ghidorah to be like the definitive Ghidorah.
It's so
in
perfect.
every film, Ghidorah, for those who are less familiar with the films, Ghidorah is kind of like Godzilla's Joker. Yeah. He's like this alien three-headed dragon that he's like a consistent recurring villain. He's meant to be a very, very big deal. He's meant to be this unearthly disaster. But obviously, because he's introduced in the 60s, he is a guy in a suit with puppets controlling like these three kind of goofy looking animatronic heads that are like sock puppets. And it's a little bit more difficult to take him that seriously, especially when you have Godzilla in a suit just punching him like a punching bag, and you're meant to kind of take it seriously. It's a bit difficult, but Michael Dougherty's Ghidorah is fantastic, especially next to the Legendary Pictures version of Godzilla, who is hefty.
That one scene of them together in Antarctica with like the standoff, you guys know the scene?
That was brilliant. That was incredible.
Even just like Ghidorah actually being a storm, right?
Yes.
Like anywhere he shows up in the movie, just the climate
He
starts
is a disaster.
freaking the fuck out. Yeah,
that's what makes him so good. You were talking about we were talking about the 2014 one a little earlier, and I wanted to hit you because you said that it's Godzilla in a smaller amount. Godzilla himself doesn't have that much screen time, and that's a very interesting point because you know what that is? That's Gareth Edwards, who also directed Rogue One, the Star Wars film. And he said that if any of you have seen Rogue One, it's kind of a big deal when you see Darth Vader.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He said,
he has the literal best scene.
Yeah, I'm going to treat Godzilla like I treated Darth Vader in that film. That's something he said. You don't get a lot of him, but when he does show up, it's like, whoa, it's a big deal. And he almost kind of obscures your visibility of him.
I think for me, the biggest weakness of that film specifically is his opponent being just a copy paste several versions of the same kaiju is really lame.
They had to kind of cobble something together. It's not quite as cool. It's not as cool as having like Rodan and Mothra and Ghidorah.
Yeah, exactly. If it had been like at least two different looking at least type of things and not just look, there's more than one. Whoa. It's like, I think I would have liked that more.
I like the film giving, the kaiju more time to breathe, and you have more time to sit with the human characters who aren't terrible. They're not as terrible as they are in other films.
I think
it makes the whole film a lot easier to watch.
In the Western ones, the human characters got worse as this like trilogy progressed. Like
they are
in the first one, I was like, fine. In King of Monsters, I'm like, just stop fucking showing me.
Oh
these
yeah,
stupid
it gets
humans.
way too sci-fi. All the human characters are sitting on this spaceship and they're just watching things happen. And it's like,
and then we get to like,
awkward.
we get to like Godzilla versus Kong, and it's like, why is Millie Bobby Brown even fucking here?
Yeah,
this doesn't go anywhere.
Girl, go home and do your coursework. Like, why are you worried about this?
But yeah, so we're all fans. We're all fans. I like the new stuff, obviously. But
yes.
I wanted to ask you. So
I mean, he hasn't answered what his favorite.
That was only half of Lawrence's question.
Yeah,
I haven't told you what my favorite of the old films was.
Go on.
And this is another kind of difficult question because I have favorites.
I mean, everyone
in different regards.
says Shin Godzilla because it's the one.
Shin Godzilla, I think, is technically the best.
It's Son of
and
Godzilla,
it's also the
isn't
most
it?
recent.
It's Son of Godzilla.
It's Godzilla. It's Godzilla at his best. It's the original modernized, and Hideaki Anno does such a good job. He's such a fantastic director. Like the Neon Genesis Evangelion vibes were just so there and was so perfect, and it underscored it in such a good, melancholy, serious, but also slightly disturbing way. Makes your like skin crawl a tiny bit just looking at him, because Godzilla in that movie does not look okay. Like every other movie, he looks like a monster. In Shin Godzilla, he looks, dare I say, he looks kind of like a tumor. He's like a walking cancer. Like his skin is all gnarled, and his nothing about him looks right. He's got these weird kind of like dead fish eyes and these weird like piddly little arms that don't look like they're going to do anything. He's just very bizarre to look at, but it makes him scarier, and it's really hard to get a giant monster to be scary. Like a little monster is quite easy to get scary. Like Blair Witch, you see it for like half a second, and it's like person-sized.
An even better example is Alien. The xenomorph is scary, and it's like the size of a human, pretty much.
Yeah, because the xenomorph can fit in a vent.
Yeah,
the xenomorph can pop up behind you. Godzilla can't do that, but they still find a way to make him imposing. If you don't get the
fuck out of the way of Godzilla as he walks towards you for 5 hours, then you're like,
precisely.
You kind of deserve that.
Saying that, I think Shin Godzilla is technically my favorite film from like a critical perspective. I have, of the older films, and in the kind of more silly ones, the more fighty ones, I do have a personal favorite, and that is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2.
The soundtrack!
Well, the soundtrack is the original Mechagodzilla. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Best soundtrack, easily Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Holy crap, I am grooving every single time that Mechagodzilla comes on, because that's the name of the song.
Yeah.
Oh my god, you know what you guys should do? You guys should totally play that as the outro.
If we don't get copyrighted,
that's true, actually, yeah.
I think my favorite Japanese one is one a lot of people either have never seen or like, I guess, just forget about. And I don't even know how the fuck you say the name, because I've never talked to anyone about it, but Godzilla versus Biollante.
Biollante. That's kind of like a cult classic. That's also like a very, very good
love
film.
The design of that, like, thing that they make out of Godzilla's like DNA. It looks so cool,
and it's also like huge.
That's
like easily the biggest thing Godzilla's ever fought. Biollante, for those who don't, obviously most of you probably don't know, is it was one of the films, I believe it was 1989. It was like just before the 90s starts. It's like the second film of the second era of like Godzilla movies, where they were like going into the 90s, and it's this gigantic like plant monster. It's like Little Shop of Horrors, but 200 foot tall, and it is like terrifying, like the way they designed this thing. But it's very,
like
very
the
cool.
mouth with like the thousands of teeth inside.
It could eat Godzilla. It could just eat him if it wanted. That's a very good film. There's a lot of like, I have a lot of sort of favorites.
I think that one's my favorite, literally because every time I look at Biollante, I just think John
floored by
Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think The Thing,
very
and that's my favorite
Yeah.
monster film of all time. So it's like, yes, give me more kaijus that look like horrible, fleshy tumor monsters made with plants and shit. Like,
Yeah.
I need more of that.
James actually used the Little Shop of Horrors on his
Yes.
guidebook.
That's because that's immediately what you think of when you hear plant monster. You think Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know anything about anything, then you know about Little Shop of Horrors. I mean, come on. That's a brilliant film.
Even I've seen that.
Miss Seymour!
Joe, do you have any questions to ask James?
I'm just learning as much as I can. This is all new to me, so it's like one of those uni
of
seminars we go
osmosis
to.
here.
Yes, a lot of osmosis.
Yeah, Joe's just in the fucking background taking notes.
Literally, what to watch, but
Yes.
So
I'm going to be using that spreadsheet.
I was gonna ask you. So you mentioned like obviously a big part of like why the kaiju films are so popular is because they had something we have currently today, and that's the crossover appeal. Like, I know there are like there's a Godzilla film, there's an individual Mothra film, there's an individual Rodan film, and then they all put them together into like to fight Ghidorah, and like I don't think I can see like all of those films in a lifetime because it kind of feels like the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a way, but
A little bit.
ages ago. So,
when Godzilla kind of took off, Toho was just absolutely going off. They were like, we've cracked it. We can just stick a guy in a suit and we'll just make tons of money. So they just made like a bunch of different film franchises.
Yeah.
To varying degrees of success. But it basically just gave them a whole load of very valuable IPs they can kind of mash together. And that's something they do in one of the older films, Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah.
Which is basically like, we've made like
yeah, it's
8
literally,
films.
I remember, it's like the whole cast of all the kaijus, isn't it?
Effectively,
in one
it's
film.
like we made like 8 or 9 film franchises. Only one of them worked. We'll take the one that works. We'll take the main villain, and we'll just shove every single suit we still have in the closet into this movie, and it just bangs.
The giant crab is there. Everyone's there.
Yeah, literally everyone. You have the it just Ghidorah shows up and just gets jumped by like 8 dudes. It's
hilarious.
Incredible. You feel bad for
because
him.
it looks like when you have those memes of like Joker in the new Joker film getting fucking kicked by the kids. By, like,
yes,
the
it's basically that. It's basically
and it's
that.
just
Ghidorah shows up,
getting
like
fucking stomped.
Yeah, and then he just gets absolutely murked. There's like a T-Rex that King Kong beats the crap out of in his like solo movie. He shows up.
Oh my
There's
God.
Godzilla's son that should have been just taken away and put in a care home. Should have been stopped from being created. Some of these films. One thing I should say. Okay, go ahead.
Why do you hate Son of Godzilla so much? Like,
he just doesn't look right. He just doesn't look right.
Is it just a visual thing? Like...
It's a visual thing, but it's also the way he's treated. Like,
it's also, I feel like any time even the suggestion is made, the Roland Emmerich film made the same mistake of Godzilla just making more tiny Godzillas. It takes away from the awe that is Godzilla as a kaiju. Because it's like, if it can just lay fucking eggs or like reproduce, then it's not as cool anymore. It's not like there's only one Godzilla.
Yeah.
You know?
If Godzilla could breathe this whole time, then why is anyone still alive?
Yeah.
Like, let's think about
why
this
does he
critically.
ever have trouble against, other kaiju? Just make 15 fucking children and go kick the shit out of Ghidorah.
Also, it's mostly the fact that the son of Godzilla is just a punchline. In the original film,
he's a goofy
he's
joke.
meant to be like a comedy character. He's like this weird, annoying, ugly-looking baby lizard thing, and he just exists to get the crap kicked out of him, and then Godzilla gets mad and beats someone else up.
He's like really bumbly and fucking like clumsy.
Yeah.
It's like, bruh, is the guy in the suit even like having a good time? He looks drunk half the time.
I don't know. I don't even want to think.
You know
about
who Son of Godzilla or Minilla reminds me of? That little baby from Dinosaurs.
Yes!
It's the same thing. It's like they try to give it the traits of a human child, but that doesn't work. You have to
No.
it's very uncanny.
It just looks like a really derpy ass little like thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we've spent like half an hour only talking about Godzilla shit.
Right,
now,
of course. There's
we
other
all
monster
like
films.
Godzilla. Yeah, James likes Godzilla, but I want to bring up some other kaiju media, because Godzilla is not all fucking kaiju.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not there. Okay, so one of my favorite Western kaiju films ever made is Pacific Rim. The first one. Forget that the second exists, I don't give a fuck about it. The first Pacific Rim, I fucking love. I think it does something with scale that it was the first time I ever saw a monster film get scale right because of camera angles, because of the rain and the effects it's having on the environment as they like fight the monsters. And obviously the fucking mechs are sick as hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Pacific Rim. James, tell me how you feel about Pacific Rim.
I also share your assessment of Pacific Rim. I think it's fantastic. Guillermo del Toro aimed to write a love letter to like kaiju films and also like mecha, which is his own sort of genre that kind of spun out of the kaiju films, and he absolutely nailed it. I love almost everything about those movies. They're movie. I don't love the second one. I haven't actually seen the second one because I don't want to ruin it for
I have, and it's just the one thing that was missing immediately that pisses me off is that entire element of the weight. You remember how in Pacific Rim, when the mechs move, they're slow.
Yes.
When you see a mech about to punch some fucking kaiju, it is like the wind-up that something that size should have. It is moving at like hundreds of fucking miles a second, but it's so large that it's still looking really slow. In Pacific Rim 2, they move like they're fucking action figures.
Yeah.
Like, they move like they're made out of plastic. They're just, like, running on walls, jumping. It's like, oh, bro, it's none of the weight, none of the, like, the heaviness is there anymore.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. That's actually something that separates the older Godzilla movies as well. Like, if you watch the original, or most of the films, really, they move really slowly.
Yeah.
He's in the original. He's only a guy in a suit for like half the film. Yeah. The rest of it, he's an animatronic, and he moves quite slowly. And then you get to King Kong versus Godzilla,
and they go off.
Not slowed down at all, and it's just two dudes whacking each other. And
exactly.
Quick.
And it looks really goofy because literally the way scale works, the bigger something is, the slower it has to move. You can't our brain immediately turns off our like suspension of disbelief if something that's supposed to be the size of a building is like moving the way a human can, because that's fucking ridiculous. That's not how physics works.
You get a bit of the
if you're the size that Godzilla is, you have air resistance. When you move, you are literally displacing like a few stories of air. You can't fucking move at like a human speed. So that's one thing that good kaiju movies get down the weight of both like the monster and anything else that size perfectly, and it feels it. When you see, like when Ghidorah fucking like flaps its wings,
it's like,
and it's like bruh, it looks like the entire fucking sky just got like pushed away.
Yeah. It's definitely that sense of scale, and I'm impressed that the Legendary films actually managed to hold on to most of that while having all of the action that they do. They do a really good job of actual kaiju fighting each other and it looking like that they're maintaining that sense of scale. Not to the same degree that the 2014 movie does when it's just Godzilla walking around, because that's quite exceptional. But the other films do a decent job as well. I
have one kaiju movie that a lot of people hate because of the way it's filmed. When it came out, really liked it because I'd never seen someone attempt to do a kaiju film in this format.
Okay.
What do you feel about the original Cloverfield?
I knew as soon as you said format, I was like, he's going to talk about Cloverfield, isn't he? Cloverfield was very interesting because as a kid who was very into kaiju, I heard about Cloverfield and kind of got really excited for it. And when I watched like trailers and such, because at the time Cloverfield was coming out, I was not old enough to go see this film because it was rated, I believe it was rated 18. I was kind of disappointed by the fact that it was like shaky cam, because I was like, oh man, I'm not going to get to see a kaiju running around. Like I was kind of annoyed as a younger person, but now that I've seen the film more recently, I think it was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Because I was talking earlier about how hard it is to make a kaiju scary. Like, Shin Godzilla is quite imposing and scary to look at. But Cloverfield, if you were actually, like, in a city and it was being attacked by something,
and it's not even
something
just,
you
like,
couldn't see, it's too big to see, it's toppling buildings around you.
How scary, like, the main kaiju is portrayed, but the fact that it's so large that it has, like, an ecosystem of other shit living on it.
Like the dog-sized parasites that kind of drop off
just,
of it.
fall off and start like fucking killing people.
Oh,
that's
seeing
so interesting.
Seeing one of those things bite that woman and then the woman like explodes.
Her head explodes.
Worth the price of admission. Worth the price of admission, which I didn't pay. But if I did,
alone is why it was rated an 18.
Yeah, 100%.
That scene is it. Like her head going. That was the fucking.
That was
fantastic.
Bitter. I actually do really like Cloverfield a lot. I didn't have a very favorable opinion of it earlier, but now when I'm thinking about kaiju films more critically, I think Cloverfield was really doing something quite exceptional.
And I love that it's the only one of its kind. No one's since or probably ever will again attempt to do like a handheld, fucking POV monster film of this kind. And it's so interesting because, like we said, scale is important, and because of the way it's filmed, it captures that immediately. Because you can never see the Cloverfield monster from above or at level. Because the humans can't get that high for most of the film. They're like on street level. Every time you see it, it's like the camera pointing at the fucking sky, right? To capture the thing like moving around.
Or like you see it for like a flash, like in between like fire and debris from like the buildings it's toppling. And that would be quite terrifying, I think, if you were actually there.
Exactly.
I wanted to quickly go back to, because you were talking about Pacific Rim, how amazing it was as a young person who was addicted to kaiju media and did not have, was kind of a weird kid in that sense, because you're into Japanese films from the 60s and the rest of your friends are not talking about those things. Mm-hmm. How amazing it was just to see at the beginning of that film the word kaiju on screen, and then to have two gigantic monsters fighting each other in a city and the crowd around you in the cinema loving it. That was just such a really like euphoric feeling. Like I finally felt understood when people watched Pacific Rim and people liked it. And that went doubly. Oh my God. Let me tell you, when I watched the 2014 Godzilla, I sat there for the entire film and I was waiting for one thing, and that was for Godzilla to shoot his friggin' breath.
Yeah, the atomic breath.
And oh my God, like when he's like charging it up and you see the glow along his tail.
I mean, the way it's designed, where the scales light up.
Yeah,
like,
the sound design as well of like the. I got me so like I was basically standing up in my chair when like that happened. I was so like years of like suppressing this weird interest that I had came out all at once. It was like, oh my God, they're actually doing it.
There's a reason that's like the climax point of the film. Like that scene
wasn't the only climax in the theater that day. Let me tell you. Oh, that was something.
I think the laser beam scenes in like the most Godzilla films are like the climax points. I once again to mention Shin Godzilla's laser beam scene. That was absolutely fucking horrifying.
Fantastic.
That's when the Evangelion vibes really came through, because...
And they play that really melancholy song as well.
Yeah,
from the Shiro Sagasu soundtrack, as he's just utterly annihilated. Like, it's like pitch black at night, and the only color you see is the flame of the sea of flame that's engulfing Tokyo, and like the purple of Godzilla's like spine and his breath attacks, just destroying everything. It's like it's poetry put to cinema.
Yeah, it is.
It was so good.
I know it's so good with his landscape shots as well. Like they're fucking to see like everything destroyed in that way through the red lights. Absolutely insane, man. I just before we moved on, I wanted to say two things. I wanted to say that I want to give a shout out to my boy who hasn't really been appreciated enough in this episode and just in general, really. My boy Gamera. I want to say that.
Gamera, I was hoping one of you guys were gonna pick up
my dream kaiju showdown is Godzilla versus Gamera, but I'm not sure that will ever happen because obviously there are.
Yeah, there's some legal loopholes to do with that one. So Gamera is how would I put?
Is that
this?
The one that looks like a fucking turtle?
Yeah, it is a fucking turtle. Gamera is a giant turtle. He breathes fire and he can put his legs up into his shell and shoot off like a rocket.
Oh my God!
Jets of fire place his legs and he flies through the air. Gamera is awesome. He's like, let's say for example, King Kong is lemonade. You have like a nice basic sugary drink, sets the stage for Coca-Cola to come along, Godzilla, and then you have someone else be like, Coca-Cola, I could make my own Coca-Cola, and they make Pepsi. Gamera is Pepsi. Gamera is the Pepsi of the kaiju world, but Gamera films are their own brand of wacky, but they're also
now that you've reminded me,
I do like Gamera.
I remember a singular GIF of this fucking turtle. It's like on like bars, just spinning,
doing like the gymnastics.
What the fuck is that? I remember
is a
that
little
GIF.
sillier. He came at the point in Godzilla's lifetime where they were doing the more silly like tokusatsu stuff.
Yeah.
Like they were doing people fighting in suits, and they wanted to create more of a spectacle.
Just wanted to shoot him out, and one day I think Gamera would do a great for like a modern reimagining, kind of like the legendary films. I would pay money to watch that. I would pay good money to watch a good Gamera film. And one more thing I wanted to ask. So, obviously, I don't know about you guys. I personally have a massive fascination with giants. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, as you guys mentioned something about moving buildings moving like humans is like uncanny valley type shit. But
the Attack on Titan reference is coming. It's like a meteor about to impact the Earth. I can see it.
But it's in every media I have. Like, I love Shadow of the Colossus, for example. That's another game where like taking down giants as a human.
Yeah, and you can argue that those are kaiju.
You can absolutely argue those are kaijus. So then, stuff like Mecha, giant robots, Attack on Titan, Evangelion, all these. What's our fascination, man? What's our fascination?
The David versus Goliath trope.
And I mean, it's also, I think it's, our myths shit we made in the past, right? We'd always make them based on like, I think a lot of like mythical monsters that would be what we now consider like the kaiju mythos to be derived from. It was like people would find like a fucking bone of a dinosaur the way we do these days, but we know what they are.
Artist's rendition.
Yeah, and they would have this like giant fucking lizard head, and they'd look at it and he'd be like,
"This is a
what
god.
the fuck? Nothing. Yeah, nothing exists right now that looks like that. Yes. So what the fuck is that? What is this T-Rex head that I have found?" So I think from all the way back then, we loved like the whole idea of. We found like signs of something existing that dwarfed us in size and looked so scary. And it's like just the idea of something like that existing at the same time as us. Like, how the fuck would we deal with something like that? I think that fascinates people because it's the same reason we created mythology.
100%.
Like, I saw that there was this. If anyone's ever seen what an elephant skull looks like, they found that. It could have been because on some Greek isles, little elephant skulls were found.
Pygmy elephants.
Elephant skulls, yes. They look, when it's just the skull, because of the place where the trunk usually goes, like a cyclops. Because it looks like there's a hole there.
There's a giant hole in the middle of its head, yeah.
So the entire like mythos of Cyclops could be because someone found a skull of one of those elephants and they didn't know what the fuck they were looking at.
Yeah.
And like this entire mythos got created. And we probably did the same thing with kaiju, but now that we like get it and we do, stuff like media and we know about the past and dinosaurs, we're just like, how cool would it be if that shit existed at the same time, where we could see it, where we could be like, what would it react like?
It wouldn't be very cool from like all the media we have.
I mean, it wouldn't be cool like for us. It would be cool as a like concept.
I don't know, man. There's something in me. Like, if I see fucking Godzilla right now, I am running and I am grabbing onto one of those spikes and I am holding on for dear life. I will scale fucking Godzilla, man. I don't know. It's something that, like, I really agree with Joe's point. Joe mentioned David and Goliath. There is a point that, yes, I'm a tiny little human, but I can overcome this giant monster.
Bro, if Ivaylo sees Godzilla, Shadow of the Colossus music starts
literally
playing.
the opened way. Just I'm on there.
He sees like the little glowing weak point on Godzilla's like shoulder or something. It's like, I gotta get there. I gotta stab the crap out of this thing.
I do, but like it's just a fascination, really. Like it's just I don't know why, but I'm very glad that it's part of popular culture. And
well, it's the same reason like 5-year-old James went to like the Natural History Museum and looked up at like the big skeleton of Dippy, the Diplodocus, in like the middle of the hall and was like, damn, this thing is huge and this thing existed. That's insane.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff is like really crazy like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more film I want us to discuss. I don't even know if James has seen
Before you bring that up, Ivaylo was talking about shout-outs, and we've got to do a shout-out to my boy, Ray Harryhausen. How many Ray Harryhausen movies have you guys seen? Come on.
I have
probably none.
No idea.
None? You guys haven't seen, like, Beast from 10,000 Fathoms? You haven't seen 20 Million Miles to Earth?
Oh, no. Okay, now that I know what his films are, I think I've seen some of his films.
It came from beneath the sea?
Yeah, of course I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen, didn't he do a Sinbad movie?
Yeah, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad.
Nah, bro.
Yeah, I've seen those.
These movies, now I should be triggering some kind of, like, weird childhood memories if you guys have seen parts of these movies.
Yes.
Like, the original guy for, like, stop motion monster animation. You know, before we had the technology to put a guy in a suit, we
Andy
had a
Serkis.
guy. Yeah, before Andy Serkis came along and just solved the whole problem.
Didn't he do the really famous Cyclops in the Argonauts film? Or
Jason of the Argonauts as well. The Hydra in Jason of the Argonauts. What's the other one where he fights? It might be the Golden Voyage of Sinbad or some Clash of the Titans. That was it. Where where with the Kraken, and there's another movie where he has like the big statue of Achilles. That kind of stuff. Yep. Like that guy. I mean, the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. I mispronounced it as 10,000 fathoms. Who cares how many fathoms it is? It's a lot of fathoms.
Fathoms.
That was the other film that inspired Godzilla. There were two films that inspired Godzilla. One was King Kong, which was already out, and the second film was Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which is about a giant lizard that is unfrozen from Arctic ice and wreaks havoc in the city. It's a very similar narrative, and those two films together are what inspired, the director of Godzilla to make that film, to embody that kind of sense of trauma from the nukes into a giant monster, which I think is something that's quite incredible.
Oh, you mean the 1981 Clash of the Titans, not the 2010 Clash of the Titans?
Yeah.
Yes, not the 2010 Clash of the Titans.
Disgusting.
We moved.
Why would you remind us that fucking thing
Because
exists?
it's a remake, apparently. Go for it. Anyway.
Yeah, no shit, it's a remake. Ugh.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I think back when they had the stop motion like monsters, those are the most uncanny because the way they move is fucking off-putting. Like the way the Cyclops moves in the Argonauts film, it's
off-putting, but it's the amount of work that.
Oh yeah, I mean that's always the case with stop motion. You look at like Wallace and Gromit is like one of the greatest things ever created, just based on the work that goes into making them do what they do.
I didn't think Wallace and Gromit would make a conversation about kaiju, but now that I think about it, Curse of the Were-Rabbit,
Yes.
That's basically the ending of that film is just a King Kong reference. Oh my god, we've come full circle. We've come full circle. Wallace and Gromit exists in this conversation now.
Wallace and Gromit, part of the Kaiju cinematic universe.
Wallace and Gromit versus Godzilla and Kong, the tag team you won.
Gromit, he looks like he's got cheese.
Oh my god.
I do like a little bit of Gorgonzola. Incredible stuff.
Nah.
Okay, I wanted to talk about one other film.
Yes, you were about to say something.
Have any of you, even James, seen Bong Joon-ho's 2006 The Host?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, of course I have, Lawrence. You know who you're talking to. Yeah,
it
Host
is my
is a fantastic
favorite
film.
kaiju film. I think it's one of those that gets the monster to the point where it is the most terrifying monster in a kaiju film that I can think of, to me.
The thing about The Host is it's not necessarily kaiju in the sense that the monster's, massive. The monster kind of...
No, it's a big fish.
Yeah, it treads a line between, Godzilla and, the Xenomorph.
Yeah, it's somewhere in between, yeah.
It's about the size of Kong from, the 2005 Percy Jackson one with Jack Black.
Oh, yeah, the Percy Jackson one.
If a bit smaller than that. And it's a great line between, something really big that can run really fast and is really scary and can kill a lot of people, but also something that can, disappear into
the water.
Into the canals.
Or the canals.
And then reappear. If it drags you to the sewers and you try to escape and it could just show up at any point. That is
so
a very,
great.
very good film. I really do like that film. And I love Bong Joon-ho as well.
Yeah. I can't believe how few people have seen it because it's such a fucking amazing film.
It's one of his earlier movies, and I hope that because he, his recent success with Parasite.
Yeah.
Amazing film if you haven't seen Parasite.
I mean, I wouldn't have known who he was when he released Parasite if I hadn't seen The Host way back when.
Precisely. I'm hoping a lot more people will find it now.
Yeah.
And I've always, there was a lot of talk about it getting a sequel at some point, and it always made me sad that it didn't, because it's such a good fucking, monster film.
Yeah.
It's so unique. The monster's design is so interesting. It's another one of the ones that has, a environmental message, because it's sort of implied that the reason that fucking thing comes into existence is just how polluted the river by the city becomes. You see it, just people dumping trash into it, and you have this fucking thing that just shows up later. It's it just crawls out of this horrible, nasty
The scene where they introduce the creature is utter brilliance. It's people start noticing that the trash they throw into the canal is starting to disappear, something's under the water eating it. And everyone starts throwing their half-eaten sandwiches. Oh look, there's some fish in here, it's eating my stuff. And then all of a sudden, it stops eating the stuff. And they're like, oh, where'd it go? And then they look a little down the way, and there's this, like, truck-sized giant fish.
Monster thing.
Bounding on 2 legs towards them, like, devouring people as it goes like Pac-Man and, like, whipping its tail at people and sending them flying 50 feet into the air. And there's, like, a moment where the main character's looking at it, he's like, is that real? And the film just does, like, such a good sense of, like, capturing that fear, but also the awkwardness of like seeing something like that and wondering like the processing time.
Like, what the fuck am I looking at?
Yeah, something like that. That's the reason I really like that movie. That is a very. I'm glad you picked up on that because I'm glad I went into this thinking, is someone going to mention the host or am I going to have to mention the host?
Of course I'm going to mention the host.
You mentioned the host. I'm happy that the host now exists in this conversation.
Oh, like it's one of those like I think it's one of the films. Well, I was on a big when I was younger. I was very big on like foreign horror because shit like The Ring scared the fuck out of me as a child. So I was very into like I want to see what kind of horror I have not seen in the West because in the West most horror films for a long while, especially while I was a kid, had just become slasher films, and that was all there was, and they were really bad. It was like I Know What You Did Last Summer and all its many like sequels and shit, and I was just like I want foreign stuff because nothing here scares me anymore.
The Ringu, oh lord.
And so yeah, I started watching all like the classic Japanese horror and a bunch of other shit, and then I found stuff like from Korea and even like a few Latin horror films I've seen. But like The Host was just one of those where I was like, yo, this is instant classic. I'm saving this. I'm gonna show this to anyone who's like willing to watch it because this film's fucking great.
Yeah.
Before we like end this, because we have been going a while, I do also want to mention some other like kaiju shit. Obviously, films and, like, anime and shit are a big thing. There's a lot of kaiju stuff in that, because for obvious reasons. But a lot of people don't, like, really talk about kaiju video games. And I think there's quite a few that can be considered to be kaiju video games that maybe people don't think of that way. And one of the big franchises that is like massive is Monster Hunter, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And Monster Hunter, you are literally hunting giant monsters. You are hunting kaijus. That's the entire purpose of the game.
Who's ready for
and
the film?
You've got fuck off. Go away. I'm so tired of you bringing up bad films. I've seen it. It's shit. Don't do it.
I haven't actually seen it.
Was that? No, please tell me.
Might get around to
Please
it.
tell me the joke made it into the film.
It did, and it's trash.
Oh my god.
The films are so like films made off of video games. We've discussed this before. They're trash, but the Monster Hunter games have some of the most inventive like kaiju designs you'll ever see. Like there's a few that are clearly inspired by like Godzilla like kaijus, but then there's a few that are like insectoids. There's a few that are weird amalgamations of like pre-existing animals with like interesting additions. I think that game series captures like both scale and movement to such an amazing degree for a game. It might be my favorite kaiju like video game series because there's not very many good ones. Because a lot of like the licensed Godzilla games kind of suck ass.
They do. I own most of them, and some of them are better than others.
Some of them are more fun.
Godzilla Saved the Earth for the PS2, big up. Love that game. That game's fantastic.
I played one on the original Xbox. I do not remember what it was called, but it was like a 4-way fighting game between 4 monsters, and you could just like destroy this arena city while you fought the others. I don't remember what it was called.
I think that might have been Godzilla Saved the Earth because it was for PS2 and for Xbox. That's a fun enough game. I used to play that a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of choice really, being a young kaiju fan.
King Kong on the PS2.
Oh.
Okay, so that's a really good game, but it's only because if you look at like the behind the scenes, Peter Jackson got really fucking involved with that game.
Yeah, he did.
Like he legitimately was working on it almost as much as the film.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's the only time I've seen like a director be like, yeah, no, I really want to like have a hand in the making of this video game adaptation, and it does a really good job.
Did anyone play any of the Rampage games?
Yeah, of course.
Rampage Total Destruction. Oh,
of course,
that's a fantastic game. Of course, that got its own film as well.
Is that the film with professional wrestler Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes, it is. You know what's funny? I kind of like that film a little in that really funny, bad but fun way. You know,
it was ridiculous, but it's got to a point where effects in monster films can be good enough to just. That's carry
the thing. I think the effects in that film are so great. Like the coyote looking monster and the fucking lizard are so terrifying.
They're like really cool. cool.
in the film.
They're quite well
The
done.
last kaiju film I want to mention, Hotel Transylvania. I'm joking. I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Incredible movie.
This is why we're kicking out Ivaylo from this podcast.
Haha, Johnny, you are fucking my daughter.
Literally, there you go. Thank you. He picked up on it.
Yeah, the last like video game I want to mention is EDF. Anyone who knows what Earth Defense Force is. Those are games that literally took the entire like goofy era of the Japanese kaiju films, where it was like dumb costume monsters that are like clumsy and wiggly and shit, and just turned it into a game series. You fight giant ants, you fight fucking massive insects and wasps, you fight like Mecha Godzilla rip-offs and weird aliens, and just that entire series is just an ode to everything kaiju ever. And I've been trying to get you fuckers to play that game with me for so long, and none of you care. I don't know why, because you clearly like this genre. It's so confusing to me.
Is it cross-platform?
No, go away. No one wants to play with you on your fucking Xbox One. Stop it.
What about my PlayStation 4?
Get some help.
No.
Can I get it for Nintendo Switch?
Yeah, you can, actually. You can.
Can you?
I'll say swear.
Yeah, it's on Switch.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh god, no, I wouldn't. It would probably run like ass. You have like
will.
600 monsters on screen at once. In that game.
Yes. The more monsters on screen, the better.
But yeah, man, we've talked a lot of shit.
We've gone on quite a while.
Yeah,
Holy moly!
This has been great. Like, this is what happens when you get a kaiju expert. Man knows his shit.
I mean, don't talk to me about kaiju if you aren't ready to like sit down for a couple hours and hash the whole thing out.
And go through like 3 Google documents of like the different films. You know what, James? Next, I challenge you to make a Mothra tier list. Come on. Give me a Mothra tier list.
I mean,
there's like 5 Mothra films that will not be as long.
Man.
Does he have his own films? Isn't he just always like a side character?
Has their own films.
She has her own films, yeah.
Wow. I did not know
actually,
that.
Ivaylo, it is a he because the film series is Son of Mothra. Feminism wasn't around back then.
What do you mean? But like, she's the wife of Godzilla. No.
What, just because it's a butterfly, it has to be female, you sexy
Also, spoiler
pig.
alert,
Okay.
like Mothra dies in like every film she's in, so it's usually. I pour one out for my homie Mothra.
How many times has he
But
died?
every Mothra you see is a different Mothra when you're watching the Godzilla
Yeah,
movies. It's
pretty
quite
much.
savage.
Man.
They usually get set on fire or something. They're always the fall guy.
You know who's my favorite? All right.
Literally, even the Western one, Mothra gets fucking bodied.
literally. Well, I mean, if they're gonna make a Godzilla movie with Mothra, they have to kill Mothra. It's tradition. Michael Dougherty knew what he was doing.
Let's finish this off by all of us saying our favorite kaiju. And that is not, obviously, the big man himself.
Well, that's,
Oh, I'm gonna sound like such a nerd because I know so many kaiju that no one else will know.
No, I'm actually going to go with something simple. I really love Rodan. I think Rodan's pretty great.
Rodan.
Rodan. He's just fucking insane. A fucking giant, flaming pterodactyl that just
he's cool.
Bursts out of volcanoes, and he has no allegiance. He kind of just shows up, has a fight, and then just teams up with Godzilla and just
He's angry.
He's very angry.
That's
his
personality.
Rodan is a very angry boy. He should seek some anger management. But that's my favorite kaiju.
Anyone else?
Okay, are you ready for mine?
Let's
You
go.
may not have seen this coming, but Gigan.
Oh,
you
wow,
fucking
really?
stole mine! You son of a bitch! You stole my idea! I was gonna say
Yeah!
Okay,
The
well,
fucking
that's how you know that
Saifans are
Lawrence knows
so
what's
cool. The Saifans are the coolest design of a fucking kaiju ever.
Gigan is a throwback to when they were like the movies were at their most ridiculous, and the monsters were literally like the monsters you would see on Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Like the most ridiculously over-designed costumes. Gigan has everything going on.
I do have.
He's got scythe hands. He's got a buzzsaw in the middle of his chest. He can shoot lasers out of his eye. Just everything is going on with Gigan. Gigan.
He's an
look
X-Man.
Awesome. He is. I love Gigan. Gigan's fantastic.
Honorable mention goes to my boy Destroyer. Another honorable mention.
I was gonna mention Destroyer.
Love Destroyer. Gotta love Destroyer.
I love Destroyer because his name's so fucking stupid.
Yeah,
They
like
they couldn't trademark Destroyer, so they had to
it's literally
Destroyer.
Yeah.
YAH. Incredible. Big up that guy. He actually managed to take
Joe,
out the big
do
man
you have a
in his
favorite
movie.
kaiju?
Yeah, Joe's favorite kaiju is Godzilla.
Well, unfortunately, because there's only very little I've seen, it's going to have to be King Kong then, in that case, if I'm not choosing Godzilla.
Monkey.
Fair play.
Monkey.
The
I just remembered
monkey.
I've actually seen Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope so, dude. At least that one.
Yeah.
Have you seen the original?
I've seen bits of it when I was a kid, and I don't remember much, so it must have been because my parents had it on. My parents probably have seen more kaijus than I have.
Mm-hmm.
I should really watch the original King Kong again. I haven't watched that one in a while. That one also has quite a lot of very impressive, like, stop motion. Like, it's partially, like, because Kong is, like, partially, like, puppeteering and partially, like,
interesting
stop motion as well. There's a lot of, like, the Ray Harryhausen stuff going on there.
Well, I'll tell you what, James, I'll definitely be checking out your spreadsheet and trying my best to tick off as many as I can as I go along.
They are not all good.
Yeah.
I do love this franchise, but I will not say that they are cinematic masterpieces. Some of them are.
No, you know what? Can I change my answer? My true favorite kaiju.
Don't say Son of Godzilla. I'm gonna kill you.
Jet Jaguar.
Oh, okay, yeah, Jet. Oh, damn it! You're taking all the good ones, Lawrence. I don't know who I'm gonna pick now.
Well, let's see. I've made it hard for you because you're such an expert. You know, you gotta pick something
There's
different
so
now.
many to pick from. I could go for King Ghidorah for the prestige.
Nah,
But I could also pick my man I could be really basic and say Mechagodzilla as well for that. Just
I mean,
soundtrack.
yeah, to be fair, I don't blame you, man. If I was a kid in like the 70s and I'm like watching the cinema and like Godzilla's fighting another Godzilla and then one of the Godzillas turns into a giant robot, I would lose my shit. So,
Like,
you know.
yeah, he has like missiles in every part of his body. He has missiles in his toes, missiles in his elbows, missiles in his feet.
Just go with Zilla, bro. Go with the
No,
true
I'm not
king.
saying Zilla. I'm not giving Roland Emmerich the satisfaction. I refuse to do it. Okay, if I want to be advanced, I will probably say, now that, all of the easy ones and the good ones that I actually like, i.e. Gigan and Jet Jaguar, have been taken, I might go interesting and say Hedorah. And anyone that doesn't know what Hedorah is from a film in the 70s.
Weird octopus-looking thing?
Kind of. Hedorah is a bit like Bong Joon-ho's The Host.
Yeah.
Is a creature born of pollution. And the film featuring Hedorah is absolutely insane. It's like the guy was on drugs. It was peak, hippie era. And it was very like, save the turtles, man. There's pollution everywhere. That's
yeah, I remember people on a forum used to like talk about these, like on a forum I was on once, and they called it like the smog monster.
That's the American title of the film, Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. But Hedorah is a very, very cool design for a kaiju, and very, very interesting that because he has like all these different forms. He like turns into a weird flying saucer with eyes whenever he wants to like get around anywhere.
My God,
he looks kind of dumb because he's basically just a walking tower of sludge. But he has these amazing like red eyes that are like really piercing and can also shoot lasers because of course they can.
Of course.
But he's cool. I like him.
Fucking insane. Right. For conclusion, James, can you give us your best Godzilla roar?
No.
Oh man, why is no one doing?
No, you're not. I'm not screaming into the microphone for you. My mum is downstairs. She's trying to watch the England game. Leave her alone.
It's not even on yet.
Shut up! The audience didn't have to know that.
Oh my God. But yeah.
Joe, do you want to lead us out of this horrible land that you know nothing of?
Yeah. You were taken for a ride there, Joe.
Yeah,
that was
it
such a good ride. It was a roller coaster ride. I enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you so much, James, for being on.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed being here.
One of our best episodes. And if you guys like, we'll definitely have James on again next time. James, if you want to plug your stuff, your social stuff, if you want people following you, or if you want to remain anonymous, that's fine.
I don't really have much social stuff. I guess I have an Instagram you can follow me at jmoriarty. I guess you can do that. There's nothing kaiju related on there. It's just my Instagram, but it'll be nice to pump those numbers up.
James is trying to become an influencer so that Toei will send him Godzilla shit.
Yes, I want to be one of those dudes.
It's not like your cover photo, like fucking Godzilla in the background. Like, come on.
Oh, okay, there's some kaiju stuff on there. I did go to Japan, I saw some kaiju stuff, but it's barely relevant.
If you look at Shin Godzilla, one of the scenes, James is just in the background getting killed.
I'm waving a sign like, go team. Go Godzilla.
Yeah, if you guys want to check some music-related content, do check out my blog at Ivinyls. It's going to be in the description. I review music with my co-writer, and we're just making some big numbers, which we're actually doing better than the podcast. So, but, I'm joking. Go check it out. But yeah, this has been Ivaylo. And
well, ladies and gentlemen, when Ivaylo disappears from the podcast, now you know why.
I love you.
See you guys next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.